there's still huge opportunity across Europe. I think Europe is there's a huge playing ground there that needs to be looked at. I mean, everybody's looking at Saudi right now or Dubai and this kind of stuff, but there's definitely a real opportunity for Europe.
Welcome to this week's Escape Your Limits podcast. This week's guest is an industry veteran with a wealth of experience, an innovative trailblazer at the forefront of the big boom in boutique fitness, and the winner of the 2022 Great British Entrepreneur of the Year. Having been the COO at One Rebel, CEO and founder at TRIB, and recently appointed by Lift Brands to its EMEA Leadership team as the COO.
Post-COVID is a different world. You know, I'm an entrepreneur at heart. I want to build things. You know, starting your own business is never easy. You make good decisions, but you make a lot of bad decisions. But I think everything led me to where I am today.
So please join me in welcoming Mr. Kevin Yates to this week's Escape Your Limits podcast. Mr. Yates, thanks for coming to Peterborough.
Thank you.
Center of the universe.
It's been a while.
I was looking at some of your Instagram and Facebook posts, and it got me, and we're both connected to Kerry, or you've been connected to him for a long time, and it just made me think of the young Kevin Yates, and I was thinking that, you know, on reflection, do you miss getting in your sort of baggy trousers and jumping on stage anymore?
No, not at all. I've been here, I think it's like 27 years we've known each other, so not at all. I've definitely done that kind of stuff. I'm putting on a little bit too much weight at the moment, that's for sure.
Right.
So not what I'm cut to do anymore.
When you think back to those days and see where the industry is now, how do you contrast like what was happening at that time? Because I think at that moment for group exercise, there was lots of freelancers. There was a lot of great people that are running some amazing businesses like yourself at the moment. And how do you see that that's still there? Because you obviously hire a lot of people and are involved in a slightly different way. But what is it similar to what it used to be, or has there been a lot of changes to when you were doing those types of roles?
Yeah, I think the consumer demand's totally different, and what they're looking for, programming's changed, development of equipment has changed over the years. And back when we were doing, just taking a room of a studio and doing multiple types of programming, I think those days are pretty much not what the consumer's looking to get right now. So, whereas, I think there's a lot of education, and the people who are delivering that now, like Kerry, in Planet Fitness in South Africa, just creating unbelievable world-class programs within the gym setting is absolutely where this modalities all come from, and these type of people. So they've gone in and been able to create some unbelievable systems and processes and programs that really offer a solution for the member without it being made up. Back in the day, you'd make classes up, you'd come up with ideas, you'd put the pieces of paper down, and we'll do a chest press on this one, and we'll do whatever. So you'd have all your cards and making it all up. But with the implementation of stuff like that, or Les Mills, what Keith Burnett has been really pushing with the whole Les Mills growth, in terms of how they operate now, has been phenomenal. So a lot of great bespoke programming for businesses as well.
Do you think, though, that some of that creativity, because I remember a lot of the events you used to go to, and there was a lot of really talented and creative people, and then they had their followers that would take their ideas and go off and develop them. There seemed to be an environment where that could thrive and people would be running these sorts of independent things. And nowadays, and I may be wrong because I'm probably not as connected as you are, but it seems to be fairly corporate and structured and almost like a little bit canned in some way compared to that sort of very much entrepreneurial, creative part that seemed to be around then.
Yeah, and I think, but you were also taking it back to, whether we were back in fitness first and taking your ideas back into a studio and creating your own type of body pump or creating your own type of body blast type program. Whereas what entrepreneurism really, some of these people went on to open their own boutiques or open their own in a leisure center, or did something where they got their own program. So I think that was the original birth of people moving into their own business, whether small, whether in local communities, whatever that was, because they didn't want to just be paid £15 for a workout. They wanted to create their own expertise, their own workouts. And normally back in the day, that was yoga. It was a yoga program that was totally unique and different because they weren't working in the gyms at the time. So you normally had to bring them in. So I think that whole opportunity for entrepreneurism, creating your own program, delivering that in the community, move towards this type of generation pre-COVID was pretty much part of the boom of making your own boutiques and making your own program, which was affordable to build.
You went on and took that dream and created a big brand across Europe with TRIB. When you came into that, how did you see that category, and where did you see that going based on the knowledge you had at the time, and how did your view on that boutique category change as you got further in it and the industry evolved?
Yeah, I mean, if we go back to 2014 when the boutiques really started going, James, coming up with One Rebel and really working on the foundation as that really set the benchmark of what a boutique should look like, and in terms of design, look and feel, and everybody wanted to copy that, but gyms were so far behind. I mean, like back in 2014, gyms were really, really plain, nothing much happening. It was all about the memberships, very cheap, and suddenly, we came in with a whole opportunity for design, looks, feel, and unbelievable coaches, training, programming, and reward for the coaches as well, and recognition. When I decided, to move on and build TRIB with my business partner, Dan, so we sat down, we came up with it, and it was about building, unbelievable facilities, great industrial looks, making sure it felt, real high value for money in the north of England, not in London. And at the same time, really focused on programs, which we absolutely were unbelievable at. So that was all what we really got to focus on, which was about customer service, sight, sound, and smell. What everything matters it was all about, and and people. We had some unbelievable people, and Lee, who was working with us, he was heading up all our program and design. Dan was doing all the property and development. I was putting all the operations into place. And looking at how we can expand, and so fundamentally we had a great team to grow the business.
Right. And what would you say as you got into that? It was a different model. And I was actually down yesterday with James talking about his views when he came into it. It was like, okay, no contracts, pay as you go. That was the idea, and he admitted that idea had to evolve, and it became very, very different even in the pandemic to keep those businesses going with that type of approach. So what would you say with TRIB are some of the things that you sort of went in and had the idea that you were able to do, but as you got into it, some sort of key lessons that you found weren't quite as you'd had hoped them to be?
Yeah, I think pre-COVID and pre-pandemic, the business of boutiques was booming. We all know that. Numbers were through the roof. The economy was in a whole different state. The millennials, we all spoke about the millennials. No one's speaking about Gen Zs or anything like this. So we were talking about millennials, had wealth, they had capital, they were spending, the research was saying about £170 per month on health and leisure, on themselves. That's what the data was saying. And that would because we were having high packages for sale. And it was very easy sell because gyms weren't offering anything of substance at the time. And probably the only one who started to consider and move was David Lloyd, with Michelle had put together Blaze and really thought about gyms offering unbelievable programs. But no one else was doing that. And so there was a massive push on boutique growth. We could see that in the market, and a real opportunity for high value proposition. And even with having not many spaces, you might have got 40 spaces, you could make a really good return. Post-COVID is a different world. People came out of it. By then, gyms have really focused on product, services, offering, people doing really great businesses and growing organically by doing different types of studios, whether that's boxing, whether that was their own HIIT program, whether that was an unbelievable yoga, but they was all now inside a box. And everybody came back and wanted a direct debit. So we'd gone from packages to direct debit systems. So when you're a single-based unit with small amount of spaces, to then say I want £120 direct debit or £200 DD, very, very difficult unless you've got multiple modalities. So it's really hard to get a consumer to pay that. Whereas then you saw, which you've got unbelievable, probably some of the best clubs around that are all offering these kind of modalities inside the gym, offering it for a lower-based membership package. Very hard to compete against, unless specifically you've got a catchment area that's not actually got anybody else to fight against. And so that's why you saw this whole transition to gyms and the growth of gyms. And you can see that even with the business I'm in now in franchise with Snap Fitness. Our gyms are spectacular, and the growth of our gym market is astounding. And it's a great business to be in right now.
What was your decision to take, because I think your first TRIB one you did yourself was in Sheffield, is that right? What was the decision in your mind at that time to go down the franchise route as opposed to open more on your own and sort of have your hands on everything?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I knew nothing about franchising, so we pretty much made it
That's good to be honest about.
Yeah, I pretty much made it up. And so what I needed to do was reach out to the right people. So luckily, I got a wonderful relationship with a guy called Rod Hill, who'd been doing franchising across Europe. So I reached out to Rod and literally came into the network, into the team. And he taught everything I knew about how to franchise a business and pull that together. So what we worked on was opportunities that came our way. I mean, it was literally just opportunities. And we had Sammy, who came to us from Finland. He wanted to open a club, and he did it as a franchise. I mean, we'd never even done a contract at the time. And we ended up with one in Russia. We ended up in China. And these were just luck of the draw, if you get. And he started to really build the network and the brand and the opportunity. And we just learned it over the next 8 years and started to figure out, oh, that's the right way to run a franchise, or that's how you help our franchise partners, or not what you should do. And we learned more wrongs than we did rights. But at the same time, it was a learning process as well.
The wait is over. Our new Escape Fitness catalogue has landed. This is the essential guide to all of the latest product innovations that are shaping the future of functional training. Bigger and better than ever, this year's catalogue is 190 pages, jam-packed with everything from eye-catching, bespoke functional training frames to some of the latest strength training equipment. So sign up today to receive the digital version today, or be one of the lucky few to receive a hardbound printed copy straight to your door. So what are you waiting for? Go to escapefitness.com now.
What were with the expansion out of England, have you done it, if you had done it again? Like, would you have gone to so many different countries that are so spread out? Would you have, or would you have kind of played that game slightly differently if you knew now what you knew, if you knew then what you knew now?
I think, you know, if I knew, I wish I had a time machine. I mean, of course, but you know, and we could all prepare for COVID as well. But going into Europe and going into other areas, that's not the issue. It's like, that's pretty easy in franchising because you find the right partner, the development schedule, you know, in terms of master rights, and you've got the systems. My mistake, I would say, was that I had two sections of the business. We had our own owner-operated side of the business, and we had a franchise business. And fundamentally, it's a total different world. And it's very hard to maintain growth in your business in franchising, because it's a different way of working and operating and empathy with franchise partners than it is to operate a store that it's yours, that you need to drive the revenues and cash and everything else. And also you have a different mindset to someone who's working in that location to someone who owns that location. And so you're either there to try and educate and teach and lead, or on the other side you could say, well, you're doing that with your own, as an owner-operator, but it's a whole different world of somebody who's getting up at 6 in the morning and leaving at 10 at night when you're running your own business. There's also a difference when this person here has put $500,000 to $750,000 into a store of their money to someone who gets paid at the end of the month regardless, and has just got a sales number to hit, or a usage or a retention or whatever. And this one's okay on holiday, switches off. This one's on their mobile phone and emailing, 6, 7 in the morning, whatever, and on just before they go for lunch with the family at night. Never stops. It's a whole different way of working. And that also gives you a different type of collective team you need to build. And that's definitely something we should have worked on earlier, to understand who we were as a business. Are we an owner-operator, or are we a franchise business growing that franchise network? And you take that back to the beginning, where we did our first location. We made a couple of mistakes as you do early doors, but at the same time, we had got into Sammy, we're working with Rod in Spain, we've got all these. And if we'd not maybe gone down owner-operator, we could have really focused on the team being more of a support network for franchise growth.
It must be difficult though, because certainly there seemed to be a window. There was a lot of brands in the US doing stuff and coming over to Europe. You were probably one of the first brands I can think of that had that, really figured out that concept and expanded it. And it's almost like, well, if you took too long to do it, then everybody in these countries are going to see it, and then you're going to have regional variations that you're going to be competing against.
Of course,
so how did you balance that speed to get your brand out there and established and become the player with trying to work out all of the things that you're talking about, perfecting the team and the model and all those sorts of things?
It's very difficult. I mean, you're an entrepreneur, this is your own business, and I'm the same. I'm an entrepreneur at heart. I want to build things, and I want to move things as fast as I can. And so, you read things in the articles or in Health Club Management, and you go, I want to go there. I need to open quickly, and you're trying to figure out, where should I go? What should we do? And so a lot of it is opportunism. You're looking for opportunist markets. You're looking to get in. Spain is a wonderful market, for that, and because the functionality of the post-COVID, of building and opening in Europe became more easier than it does in the UK.
Right.
Cost to build, cost to operate. There's no taxation on buildings in Spain. There's taxation on buildings here, which are an absolute travesty for business. And at the same time, you've got electricity costs that have gone through the roof. You've got operating costs which have gone up in UK, and in Spain and in other areas, it's nowhere near what it is here. So where you could have had a 30-40% increase in cost to operate over there, on top of the taxation that you already pay, in some of the European areas, you just didn't have that issue. And so it becomes easier to build, easier to move. And no one can kid ourselves, with costs of build in the UK, due to Brexit, whether we like that or not, it is more expensive. Materials are more expensive. Finding labor is more expensive. And so we haven't got them issues. Taxation and moving stock into the UK has been an issue, even moving imports and exports. So then you're saying, well, how do I so I might as well buy and build in Europe. And so that became a more sensible way to focus. So, and that's a problem for us all right now in the UK economy, is how do we build clubs efficiently for a great price without over-leveraging ourselves.
Were there some markets or countries that were more receptive for your type of boutique concept than others in Europe?
Definitely when we went to Spain. We went to Barcelona first in a place called Haribao. Rod and I were working on that location. We lost that because it flooded. Madrid was an exciting place for us. When we opened in Madrid, Cusco, just the most wonderful building. It still is a spectacular location. It was just we just knew that site was going to do really, really well. It was going to take time, like any business, to get going, because we were still trying to educate the market of what boutique was at the time.
Was that your own facility?
So yeah, we did that as a joint venture, right, with Alan and Jonathan Fisher. It was a wonderful partnership for that location. And it was so exciting to get that going, because it was like a total flagship of the brand at the time. So it was always be one that's really close to my heart, that location. And it's doing superbly well, right, and the team run it really well there.
And what about other markets? Like, did you go into France or Germany or anywhere like that?
So France, we were never really particular on it because of the laws around the staffing and people. But Helsinki was a great one. We did 2 locations in Helsinki, one in Helsinki itself and one in Tampere with Sami. So that was real great fun. And he's still operating those locations now. And but Tampere closed down pre-COVID. And at the same time, we moved into Moscow, into Russia with Alexei. This was in 2018. But again, we haven't got that location now due to all the circumstances that are going off at the moment. The fun one for us, I think, was really interesting was China. When that was a great learning and great education.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And we went to a place called Guangzhou. Such a just unbelievable, 60 million population, opening inside one of the best towers, just so much fun and learning. And Lee, who's at Everlast now, is one of the team there. He went to live there with his now wife, and I just don't know how he did that, but he went but great fun, great learning for all of us. And
did it take off in China then?
It was difficult because again, it's a small percentage of population work out in China, and an even worse percentage work out in a hit-based formula. So we got people turning up in chinos and flip-flops, so it was crazy. But actually, when you watched it, Super Monkey was doing really well at the time. So we were walking down, and every street corner, just like there was a Starbucks opening up, and suddenly there was a Super Monkey, and you were like, what's this? And it's just a PIN code, you go in, you got a screen, full, absolutely full. And they were just opening up every week. And so it was, I think, it's any market, are they ready for your brand before it comes in? And I think China was definitely not ready for a hard hit program.
Is it still there?
No, it's gone now.
Right.
It went in COVID as well, so we lost that one.
What are you most proud of in that period of time from a professional perspective that you got from that journey?
I mean, look, we've got the brand is still there. It's a beautiful business model. Made some amazing friends. We built a wonderful team. Very exciting. I'm proud to see the programming. I'm proud to see how people have left the business and gone on and done really, really well. I'll give you an example, like Dan Summerson, who's my business partner when we first started. He's managing director of Everlast Gyms, and he's designed those gyms, which are spectacular, and he's gone on to do that. And Lee's gone with him. We've got people who've gone on to be regional directors for Pizza Express or whatever. So there's just a plethora of teams that have gone on to do so well as they've been with us for 2 or 3 years and moved on. And they've all stayed really close friends of mine. So I take great pride in that as well.
Right. And for Kevin, what would you say are your own personal lessons from that journey?
Whew. I mean, I've had a lot of, starting your own business is never easy. You make good decisions, but you make a lot of bad decisions. But they fundamentally come from the heart, and they're done at the right time or
based on what you know at the time.
Based on what you know at the time. I mean, you're only as educated as you are as far as you've gone into your journey of owning a club. I was with somebody the other week who's a very, very senior, CEO, and he wants to open a business, but doesn't even know how to start a business and register a business or whatever. So when you see CEOs who've worked in businesses, they've never. Some of them have just never started from the scratch. How do you get started? Start your website. How do you trademark it? How do you get your VAT set up? How do you get your banking set up? What are you going to do when what a raise? How do you negotiate a landlord deal? How do you finalize your contracts? You've got all these processes to put into place. Then you've got to get your delivery of equipment, then your stock. Wait a minute, did I get a PDQ machine? All these things you got to do yourself. And so there is nothing, when you're an entrepreneur, and anybody in the market who's got one club has got my absolute respect, because they're the ones really hustling and working every day to make this industry special. And so I think I've learned so much, and I've learned so many mistakes, and I think My big one would be, it's really hard to say because, you'll always look back and say, I wish I'd have done that. It's like the lottery. I wish I'd have put them numbers on a few days before the actual lottery came out. But I think everything led me to where I am today. So I'm good with it, with whatever we've done and grown. We've grown an exciting brand and I'm excited where we're all going into the future. It's absolutely fine. And I think there was a great one on Joe Rogan. I forgot the guy's name, and he keeps saying great. When he says something bad and he goes, great. He keeps saying to him, great. And it is, it's great. I've had a wonderful time, and all the ups and downs, it's fine. Because we can all look at COVID and say that's killed us, but it hurt everybody in all different ways. Some people did really, really well out of it, whether that was food and beverage or whatever that was. Gyms, we had it tough, but we came through at the other side and kept going.
I spoke to James yesterday. He had a very open conversation about how tough it was for him and how close they got as a business to maybe not even making it through. And then we had Jason on earlier today, who was at Life Fitness and left. He had a huge change in his career. Basically got exited from the business. And I guess when you look at your business career, like as you just mentioned earlier, we're constantly, if you start up a business or go into a new area, we're constantly doing new things. So the chances of us knowing and getting it right first time are fairly sort of slim. And if you do it, it's probably more luck than judgment because you're constantly pushing yourself and challenging yourself. But yet when it goes wrong, we all, certainly in the last few conversations, we kind of look at ourselves and we, in some cases, question ourselves and our ability. And it seems to take quite a bit to get back over that. And I've certainly been through that a number of times over the last few years myself. But allowing that to stay with you prevents you from sort of brushing yourself off and saying, okay, now I know something I didn't do and I can do it better. How did you, it must have been tough to go through that period and to move on, and because it was your baby as well. Did you go through some tough times personally?
I mean, look, it's been a roller coaster. And it's been tough when you're coming out of COVID. You got a brand that you love, but you know it's going to be. You're running out of cash. You know that people are coming back in a different way, so they're coming back to gyms. And after that third lockdown, we were coming back in the UK. The market just didn't rush. It wasn't as though we had this real rush of people wanting to spend a lot of cash, and it took a little bit of time for that to come back round. And so it was a tough time. So when we went through what we went through at the beginning of 2023, you do look into you look at yourself. You're trying to psychoanalyze yourself. What did I do wrong? But at the same time, I spend that as much as I could to help my teams that were leaving us, as we went through them changes, and making sure that everybody were moving into great roles and trying to help as much as I could. And I think you try and get away from the selfless thing as, I need to help my team, and that gives me help personally, so that I feel like I'm participating. And at the same time, you know it's gone, or you've lost your vision, or and then you get into the realms of blaming yourself, and so you've definitely got to surround yourself with a really cool support network, and it's hard because a lot of people go through these kind of trials and tribulations of business, ups and downs, especially if you've started them, and then things are evolving and changing. But at the same time, I got some good rest. I got some beautiful family, some amazing friends. We got away and get the opportunity for a fresh start, which I've been able to do, and I'm really excited because I'm doing exactly what I love doing, which is building businesses and helping people build their businesses and move forward. So I class myself as very fortunate, very lucky, and onwards and upwards, and we'll go again.
Yeah. When you came out of your head from being sort of deeply in this boutique franchise space and then started to look at the industry prior to your next step in Snap, what did you see going on in the industry? How would you best describe your perspective on the whole space? Because you came from big box, I'll call it, well, and I know Snap's not necessarily a big box, but you came from a traditional fitness business, then you went into boutique, you expanded into Europe, now you're back, now you're with Snap, which is a very different business. What you know, looking at the sort of sector that Snap operates in, how did you see that? What were some of the changes that you'd observed, and maybe give your perspective on that?
That's really good, because I think all what I've done in the past in 27 years has taken me to this point. And, you know, understand, I mean, look, I grew up in the big box era, you know, with Fitness First and everything as when the boom was happening. So I know how big box should operate, and I know what we should be doing. And then going into, you know, high-end luxury clubs like Sporters at the time, before we sold to the Alabi Group, you know, that kind of stuff. And then creating boutiques, you know, in that world. By coming into Snap, I've already gone from boxes, but into franchising. And so I understand the depths of franchising, but I also understand about business, because it's my business and I know what not to do, and I hopefully know what to do as well. And at the same time, as you're coming into the Snap world, you know, and as we grow in this, I can empathize and I can understand what challenges our franchise partners are going through. But at the same time, I know how to build clubs quickly, and I know how to develop that. The benefit of moving this way was the market has shifted. I mean, if you take Europe in itself, it's shifting quickly.
What way would you?
You know, if you take, you know, in terms of, there's a lot of clubs opening up in the UK market, so space isn't optimal at the moment. But there's also a lot of legacy clubs that have not been invested in, so not, you know, gyms that have just not put capital in after COVID. So they've left them, have not been able to recapitalize. They may have took a CIBIL loan within COVID, already burned that, and they've not been able to generate the revenue. So there's a lot of legacy still in the UK market, but there's a lot of clubs in the UK market, that's for sure. So there's a lot of work to do there. And I see there's still huge opportunity across Europe. I think Europe is there's a huge playing ground there. That needs to be looked at. I mean, everybody's looking at Saudi right now, or Dubai and this kind of stuff, but there's definitely a real opportunity for Europe. What I really like about franchising is that because it's an individual who's running their business, that's where the real growth can come. And I think there's some real, still a huge amount of opportunity for areas, UK, Ireland, and Europe for our business as we grow. And I'm really excited. I mean, we've got, you know, about 15 clubs in build at the moment and development. We've got a pipeline which is phenomenal. And you know, so that model for us right now is really exciting. And knowing that the market is coming back to gyms. That's what they're doing. They're coming back to gyms. Now, what you offer in those clubs is a whole different kettle of fish. And we've got to be offering it to the right persona, to the right market, to the right type of people.
I wanted to come on to that. I've certainly hear that those consumers are quite different. That the people that went into the pandemic that were going to gyms have come out, and now they're sort of almost, they know more than, or they've listened to more than most trainers have done. They've followed people on social media, they listen to podcasts, so the people are going back and demanding a lot more from the product. And then there seems to be a lot of people that have been scared that they're not working out, and now they're finding their way into the club. So what are you seeing at the consumer level in terms of what they want now? And if anything, what are some of the key differences that you're having to address as an operator to remain relevant?
Yeah, I mean, technology is still on everybody's forefront. I mean, you've got to have an easy access system to get people in and out of clubs. They want to make that simple, you know, and viable. And at the same time, you need to have a system of an experience. And we all talk about that, you know, as an experience. But at the same time, you know, what's the gym feel like? What's the programming? You know, every time I come in, and now we've got this whole movement to strength. You know, the women in strength, my kids, I mean, she's 17, my middle one's 17, and my old one is 23. You know, they're on a squat rack. They know more about the squat rack than I do. I mean, they're, you know, watching it on films. And I remember taking my daughter, I had another gym, and went for a workout with her, and I said, do you want me to teach you the squat? Do you want me to? No, it's okay. I've been following so-and-so, and she's on it, and she's got the bar, and she's absolutely fine. So I think this whole new generation that are coming in, pre and post, if you think about pre and post COVID, the different type of people, we've got all this post generation of people coming in now that are 2-3 years older than they were when we went into the pandemic. It's just a new generation of working out and a different type. And they are more health conscious. They're more health conscious, they're more thinking about the workouts, booty workouts, strength workouts. It's not necessarily as much cardio. We know that now by the the gym installs of equipment, cardio equipment, and they're looking for that, solid workout that they're trying to get. But at the same time, we've got this whole generation of strength training that's going off in clubs right now, which is exciting.
Coming up next.
You get them back, get them working out, they'll stay longer. We've got a lot of amazing equipment out there, but it's not just about throwing it in as quickly as you can. You're creating complexity, and business is about reducing complexity.
It's exciting. Do you think it throws up challenges when you're looking at the space and thinking about, okay, right, I've got the guys that always used to be, like, I'm going back to the fitness first days and probably even the pure, you've got the guys who almost think they own that area, the ones that lift a lot of weight. You've now got the women that are now want to work out with squat racks and with those types of people. You've got less cardio, which in some ways the benefit for cardio is everybody's got their own station. They kind of know what they're doing. They get on with it. And so that's being reduced. And then there's these big kind of areas where there's a lot of people of very, very different levels and abilities, and males and females, that is a little bit more difficult to organize than if you had 10 pieces of strength machine and 10 pieces of cardio.
Yeah.
So are you having to think a little bit differently about how those spaces are laid out, how you can get people through those spaces effectively? I chatting to someone, and the challenge with squat racks is you've actually got, you have 2 or 3 people now because they go to the gyms together and they're on there for like an hour and a half on like one squat rack. So what are you seeing, and how are you dealing with some of those gym design changes?
Yeah, I think functionality of how the gyms are we've clearly changed that over the years. And moving people around and being able to have enough programs and enough different type of areas for people to work out in is going to be key. I don't know how to fix the problem if you've only got 4 squat racks and 4 people come in and they want to stay on that squat rack. The last thing you want to do is put stickers on saying you can only have 10 minutes.
Like you used to on the treadmills years ago.
Yeah, so you can only run for 10 minutes. I remember them days. I mean, you're not going to get that done. But I think there's a lot of work to do there, without question. I mean, you're always trying to think about best ways of laying your club out, that's for sure. But the problem is, clubs have got a different dynamic in different areas when you start to put them in. So a club that you're going to put in the high street in Sheffield or whatever is going to have a whole different type of persona and demographic than it is when you put it in another area, down south somewhere. So I think the ebb and flow has got to, otherwise you'd just have a cut of this is what every single club looks like. So I think it takes time. Clubs take time to bed in. Any club that I've ever opened, any gym that I've ever opened takes time. You move stuff around, you get that flow. But at the same time, I think you've got to have specific programs that are embedded within your whole persona of the business. And so what's the vernacular that you want to send out? How are you going to get that?
That's a big word, Kev. What is that?
It is. It's like, so how are you going to make that work? How are you going to speak the language to your community? What is it that you're trying to say? And so when you start, because realistically, most small clubs want 1,500, 2,000 members. Got a really good club then, and it runs. So it's not if you've got a 400,000 or a 300,000 demographic or whatever, what's your persona and how are you going to speak to them, and what are you trying to deliver that's different to everybody else? So if you've got a pure gym near you or a gym group which offer great services and products, though, for a price, it works really well. So against probably one of the best operators where you've got Alan coming in with JD clubs, nearby. So how do you compete against someone like, I mean, they're very difficult to compete against Alan. And then at the same time, you then say, well, how does an independent compete against these individuals? And who's my target audience? What is my programming separate to everybody else's? So who am I trying to create, and who am I trying to focus on?
I was looking at a couple of surveys that were done. One of them was by Pure Gym, I think, and then there was another one by My Protein, and then Fitness First did one over the last since the pandemic, 2020. I think one's 2023, one was 2022, and they all talk about this these new people that are coming in, whether it's males or females, that are intimidated, don't really know where to start. Like Fitness First had a big percentage of their members that didn't even know how to use the Smith machine. So there's people that are not totally confident about being in the gym, worried about working out next to members of the opposite sex, and just a general unfamiliarity about working out in the gym. What are you seeing on that? Like, are you focusing on more people that do know what they're doing, and that's not really, you know, a Snap gym wouldn't be for those people, or are you getting those people in and you're having to think about how to address the needs of someone who's got a very, very basic level of confidence about coming in the doors?
I think confidence, I mean, look, you know, I think for our business, you know, we've got a higher age bracket compared to the kids. So, you know, if you're taking 25 to 38 as an age bracket, you know, we've still got a really small majority of people in the UK market exercising. We know that. And we've still got a long way to go. And so there's a lot of people go in and out of exercise. Could be a year, could be 2, could be 3. And so it's like driving a car. If you stay out of it for 3 years, you know how to work it, but it's pretty new buttons everywhere. There's a few things that are different.
Like dating.
Like that gets, I don't know, I've been married nearly 20 years, so I haven't done any of that lately. But you're absolutely right, and it's exactly like that. You're starting again. It's like going for a job interview. If you've run your own business, like for 14, 15, 16 years, you've got to go for a job interview. It's hard work. You've got to figure out to speak and what they're looking for, and it's the exact same with gyms, just getting back in. They're different again. So, you know, if somebody's had a refit and it takes time, they want to be introduced, you've got a new equipment that you guys are building, it's different, it now looks different. What's this crazy rig with a wall thing that I've got? Do I throw it? What do I do? So I think people are in and out of exercise. I think that's been natural over the years. You know, we all go through cycles. Some people are in it all the time, every week, do 5 sessions a week, 3 sessions. Some people do 2. Some people are in it 2, 3 times a year, or then it's, you know, they've joined us because they've gone through some kind of trauma or whatever it is. You know, people will always go through them cycles of working out. Now, the question would be is, you know, when you get them into that, have you got great service, great facilities that look after them? And I think that's what everybody's got to continually strive for and work towards, because I don't think that's ever going to change. You know, if I said to my brother, he was always working out, strength training, bodybuilding and everything, he's probably not trained for like 3 or 4 years now. Ask him to go back into a gym, he's going to be wondering, you know, on a few pieces of kit, what do I do? And he's probably going to sit on the standard chest press, plate loaded, whatever, stay off the plate loaded, whatever he's going to do to just get going. And then you get on the treadmill or the bike and it becomes easy. So that's why PT is so important. Personal training is hugely important in the business to get people in. And at the same time, I think your service offering has got to be still there. I mean, look, one of the best, if you take Fitness First right back in the day, we did 1, 2, 3 programming, 30 minutes, 30 minutes, all 30 minutes, an hour and a half, everybody got it free, and you basically had to come back 3 times within the first 2 weeks. I mean, it was that was the obvious, simple system, and it's still true today. There's no difference. You get them back, get them working out, they'll stay longer, and they'll get used to it and everything else. And it's pretty much the same. I don't think the psychology of usage and influence changes that much in that sense. You've just got to get people back in. And even in the boutique space, it was pretty much, you've got to get them 3 times before they buy. So you needed to get them in 3 times, and then they'll buy. If you don't get them in 3 times, pretty much they're not going to buy. And that's what you had to do. And that's why you see, you know, buy 3 workouts, come in 3 times, do this deal. You want to get them down, and then they will buy.
How are you dealing with the challenges of staff? Like, from what I've heard, a lot of good trainers have figured out they can make money on their own without going into a facility. There does seem to be challenges with just keeping staff. Maybe that's just the way of the world where people are traveling a lot more. I don't know the reasons, but most people I speak to in any business, whether it's hospitality, restaurants, etc., are dealing with this. As we're such a people-based industry, and as you gave a great example of that, how do you continue to scale a business like Snap when you're having to deal with the challenges of the human capital?
Yeah, I mean, human capital is is a hard one to get hold of right now. But the difference we've got is that our human capital own the site, so it's theirs. And so for them, they are highly experienced, knowledgeable, passionate. They care about the business because it's their business. And so we're in a little bit of a different market to, opening up a location and you're hiring a couple of staff and you're doing X, Y, and Z. So I think because it's more personal, more localized, I feel like we've got a really good process of people. And so when I go around Snap, we've got 114 locations across our network across the EMEA, they're just amazing. I mean, they're really, really smart, educated in terms of in business and in terms of how to operate a location, because that's what they do. They operate businesses. And we've got some wonderful franchisees. I mean, multiple franchisees owners that own, say, 30, 40, 50 Domino's, Costas, other brands, and we're part of their network because they own Snap locations as well. So really smart conversations of how to not only franchise, but how to operate locations really, really well. So finding staff, we're pretty good at that. And a lot of our franchisees, and JP, I know Steve was with him the other day, he was one of our gym managers, and then he was running a region for one of the franchisees, and now he owns his own Snap location, which is just opened in Addleston, which is fantastic, because that's the journey we can take our people on. We can teach them how to run a club, we can work with them, we can work with the funding, and later on have their own location because they know the product and the brand. And that's the exciting thing about franchising. It's a wonderful place because you can see people really, really succeed. Not just succeed in business and working and doing well with the P&Ls and stuff, but actually owning a piece of the pie. Which I think is more exciting than anything.
Yeah, I can see that if you've kind of got this owner-operator compared to a big chain where they're trying to get people and managers and regional managers that don't own the business. I know in Fitness First, in the early days, there was a lot of sort of equity types of incentives for a lot of the key people, which I guess was the reason why they were able to scale and build such a great team up until a certain point. Yeah. And if you don't have that, I can see how it's difficult. But if you're, let's say you own a chain of Domino's or whatever, is there similarities from a people perspective between, like if you own 10 Snaps and you have 10 Domino's, are there a lot of similarities? Or, because I suppose my thought is that, delivering some of the food products where it's very, very systematized and everybody does a certain thing is a little bit different to maybe personal training, or maybe it isn't. I don't know.
I think it's about knowing business well. So you've got really good business leaders that understand how to build businesses and operate them and look after their people. I mean, they've got multiple staff changeovers, in their other food and beverage areas, but at the same time with Snap, they've got fundamentally a business which is a franchise business, but they understand how to operate. And what you really want is good operators. People can really operate business. If you can operate this, this is not that hard. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. Right. If you're opening a gym, once we've been in it so long, it becomes a nice process of, bringing people in, looking after them, selling an affordable membership, getting them to work out, getting them to enjoy the experience of the workout, and keep coming in and keep coming in, and reduce your levers as much as you can. But we know that people will always leave. You're always going to have levers, but you're just going to keep that moving and offer something that the community want.
Right.
And
I suppose they're basic, bit like hiring people, managing people, incentivizing people, putting managing, following systems. I suppose if you strip away the product, you're right. Like there are some key business principles that if you're really good at that, you can probably turn your hand to other things. I would have thought. Yeah.
Well, it's like anything. No one goes to work to do a bad job. You didn't get the job and go, oh yeah, I'm going to be crap today. I'm going to be really poor. You got the job and you want to do a great job. The reason you didn't is because normally your manager's pretty poor, your business is pretty poor. They're not looking after you. They're not helping you. They're not developing you. That doesn't happen in our business because, it's a franchise business. It's their business. They want it to do well. They want to be really, really successful. So that's why we've got great people. And that's why in franchise, you have that kind of mentality. It's a whole different shift, and it's like I said at the beginning, that's why it's so different to have corporate-owned operations to franchise-owned operations. It's a world apart in terms of how you operate, communicate, work with your partners, but also try and lead the business in a whole different way.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about it like that, but it does make sense. It's and really, I think like Anytime were probably the first big fitness franchise that came here, and then Snap. But it was strange that after being in America for some time, franchise is the way to go. I guess because it's so big and it's difficult to finance. That could be one part of it, but it seems to be a lot more common there. Yeah. Here, outside of the more food and that, you've not really seen it as much until people like yourselves and Anytime have really come in, and I think USC is starting to do that now. But it hadn't been as popular in fitness, has it really?
No, I mean, look, the US is totally different. You know, once you've done your FDD and you're settled in, but the laws are hugely different in the US. You know, California's got its own law on franchising compared to, you know, if you want to go into Texas, it's a little bit more easier, that kind of stuff. But at the same time, the way you can raise capital is totally different. So, you know, when you can get 70 to 100% full guarantees, no personal guarantees on debt, all that kind of stuff. So there's real opportunities for raising capital, and because the markets understand franchising. Now, when you come to the UK, literally, you've probably got HSBC who do really well with franchising, and maybe NatWest. No one else really helps. Then you've got a few leasing companies like J-City, you know, who do really well to help people get financing. But there isn't that many people that were really helping to raise finance
unless
at a cheap
you've got
price.
equity, have you? Like, did HSBC do it without you putting up your house?
Yeah, I mean, most people are gonna want a personal guarantee in some capacity, depending on what type of franchise business it is. I mean, so you're trying to do deals with the bank to say, hey, you know, give me 50 to 70% lending capability on, you know, $500,000 to 700,000. You know, unless you're a really reputable franchise business, like a Snap, it's very difficult to get those borrowings in place. Now, we've been able to work really hard with our partners at HSBC to be able to do that, so we're really excited about ways forward. I mean, but if you take people who were, like when Jan was here with Energy, I mean, he was probably the first to do franchising in the UK. I mean, he was probably the first to get those guys going. And then at the same time, you know, we've all now started to get to the market, you know, obviously Anytime, as you just alluded to, you know, Snap, we're pretty much, you know, all across the UK now. And at the same time, you've got, you know, smaller independents that are starting to do it themselves, you know, whether that was small boutiques or whether that's small gyms trying to get into the franchise market as well. So it is a growing area, it is moving. But France is huge. I mean, Germany is huge. I mean, France is literally a huge market for franchising, and so is Germany.
Yeah, Germany, I've seen to do it as well. Do the Germans offer favourable financing for franchise? Do you know if that's part of it?
The problem is in Germany, you've got to go and set up. So you've got to capitalise yourself, get into Germany, build, set up. You know, the market's not going to take a franchise because you've got one in France or you've got one in wherever. So, you know, you've got to get yourself set up and you've got to really, really prove the model over there. So that's going to take you 2-3 years because you're going to have to show a cash run rate and stuff like this. So it's a little bit of a tougher market. I think when you're looking at going into Scandinavias and that kind of stuff, I think those are great markets for the next generation of franchise opportunities.
What are your thoughts on the gym supply side? A big part of your business is the equipment that people use. You've been involved in that and you know most of the major suppliers. Like, where do you think the suppliers are, and do you think they're meeting the needs for where businesses like yourselves need to go in future? And I'm not asking you to sort of call out any names or anything like that, but if you think about where you want to take your business, where do you see them, and where do you see some opportunities that you know maybe others don't?
Yeah, I mean, you know, we've both been around a long time, and I mean, equipment is so much better than it's ever been. I mean, you know, all the manufacturers are pretty much churning out a superb kit, whether that's design, functionality, whether that's small arms equipment or the new Guntner bars that self-clip and all that kind of stuff. I mean, there's so much great equipment to choose from now. So it's pretty much you're in a situation where like who can help support you the best, who can install really well, who's working with you on your program content, and how does that fit with, as we said earlier, which is about how, if I'm putting this in, what's the story it's telling? And I always talk about everything matters. I'm not just in for buying that bar or buying that piece of kit. It's like, what's the story? How are we going to use it? What's the program behind it? Where are we installing it and why? And what's it going to return for our community? And how are they going to use it? So we just got to really get into the thought process of, we've got a lot of amazing equipment out there, but it's not just about throwing it in as quickly as you can. We've got to take time for product placement and more thought process as we start to elevate these clubs, as we move forward. But I think, definitely there's some amazing kits out there now, and the technology on treadmills and all this kind of stuff, it's spectacular. I mean, you can do anything on it, really, can't you? But most of the time, you just press go.
Well, that's what I mean. And Jason said this earlier, and that's why I was interested. Is like, are we? And I'll use we because I'm in that class. Are we developing things that the clients that are coming in your doors want? Like you mentioned, a lot of people, they want the squat racks. Okay. But are you finding, whether it's support on how to use information, or whether it's the type of products, the warranties on products, do you think that there's a good connection with the end user with what they're looking for, which will in turn provide operators like yourself happy clients? Or do you think there could be more to do where, suppliers and operators are working together and they're understanding a little bit better about where things are going and how to, because everybody, you can't have gyms necessarily just full with squat racks, but that does seem to be what people are looking for. So, how do you deal with that?
Yeah, but we've all evolved in that space. I mean, back in the day, it was like 20 treadmills, and then a few years later, it was more cross trainers than treadmills. There was a whole shift that everybody wanted a cross trainer. The market started to demand it. Now we've probably put 2 in, 3 in, or whatever, and then most are back to treadmills because people are really going for the tread. Then we turn around and say, do we want slat treads or do we want non-motorized treads so we can get on and do sprint training? There's loads, but again, there's no point putting all that in if you haven't got the program and the support systems to help, and it's the same with technology. We can put loads of tech on the kit, but if 90% are just pressing go, then there's other things that we might need that are more functional that can help people to have better facilities. And so I think it totally depends on where you are and the price you're going to put on the membership as well. So I agree with what you're saying, but at the same time, if you are offering a club for 25 or 50 or 200 a month, unfortunately you're going to have a different variation of type of product and services that you're offering. Otherwise, you want to be able to have all the best of the best and charge £25, but that's expensive. It becomes an expensive cost to build.
Where do you see the traditional gym fitting into where you start seeing the industry moving? There's a big move towards recovery, and people are thinking about doing that now. Planet Fitness and a number of others, UFC, etc., are creating areas where that is now part of what you would expect. There's now the sort of saunas, the cold plunges. That's another interesting area that a lot of people are thinking about. When you're looking at your business, are you very much, look, we're doing the fitness component and we're going to do that really, really well? Or are you sort of thinking about, well, maybe what we do as a business needs to evolve, and maybe we do need to kind of be looking at some of these new things that people are going to go elsewhere for if we don't have it?
Yeah, look, it's a great question. I mean, heat therapy, red therapy, cold plunging, I mean, it's brilliant. I mean, all the research you can see off it and people using it, I think it's an exceptional product. And you can see with recovery, or what Edward's doing in the US, and he's growing amazing for him. He's doing some wonderful things in terms of his recovery rooms. But at the same time, our business is fundamentally what it is, and it works. So our system is growing gyms. We've got 2 studios and an outside-based workout, and we have FOD, fitness on demand. So we've got a great footprint and offering, which we're working on in terms of how we lift that up and keep offering unbelievable service to our communities and stuff. At the same time, I think this is probably not our world. We're not going to be the best in the world at it. We're not experts in this. And I think that's something for other businesses to consider. And I would definitely be considering a few certain areas. But pretty much it's like, I don't feel like that's probably going to be the right direction for our business. However, I advocate it fully. I think doing all that kind of stuff, if you've got the nerves to jump in a 3-degree bit of water, I haven't. I struggle with it, but it is a great system.
Because have you guys, as Lift Brands, got other brands that sort of fit next to what you're doing? Like, what are the brands that are part of Lift Brands?
So we've got 9 Rounds, Fitness on Demand, and we've got FitStop as well.
So you got a few brands there. So I guess with a franchise business, arguably, if you were going to do recovery, you could do like a recovery thing on its own and just focus on that, as opposed to kind of having a fitness brand that becomes a boutique and a recovery thing, which is what I guess some businesses would do.
Yeah, I think, but that's happening in the US right now. There's a lot of those kind of opportunities that are opening up where you've got just recovery rooms. I think there's a real opportunity there for someone to harness that type of offering. Not with a gym, but maybe with something else for high street based recovery rooms. I think there's definitely some wins there. But I totally advocate. I know that there's a few big gym operators that are definitely looking at that kind of space now, to be able to put that into their facilities where they've got a sauna already, and do they implement some cold therapy in there and red light. So I think it's definitely an interesting way to go.
Yeah, I was in London yesterday. I asked the question to them, and they said that they're not going to do it, but they've got a really key partner, best in class, and they create this referral program where they recommend this. And I think it was another thing that Jason said earlier as well about, I think that's the thing, is sometimes there's a tendency to try to be all things to all people, and you sort of made a good point, which is like, who's your avatar? Because before you know it, particularly in this day, it's very difficult to resource and play to win in too many categories, where it's probably easier to double down and to dominate on one or two. Yeah. But then that's normally where even I suppose a simple example of where are you a franchise or have you got your own locations? Something just as simple as that requires 2 very, very different mindsets.
Yeah, absolutely.
So then if you have additional modalities, that probably times that by 4 or 5.
Well, you're creating complexity, and business is about reducing complexity. So good business has less complex within it, because it becomes easier to operate, less maintenance and less thought is needed. So you can get on with things that you win at. So when you start talking Play to Win, which is a great book, and you start saying, well, where am I going to win with this right now? And where's the main revenue? You don't want to get 5-10% off the lowest bit of the business. You want to get it off the top section of your business. And that's where you're going to play to win. So for me, it's like, do you, as a business, when you've got so many locations, do you want to focus on that? Or do you just want to focus on driving the business in the right way, which is what? Which is growing our franchise network, getting new franchise partners that want to open wonderful locations. We have a superb gym model that we've got that works, that absolutely works, and we want to grow that network. Now, adding in different, like a spa, and I remember back in the day, Fitness First, we had spas right at the beginning, and we spent years taking them all out and everything else. And so we took all them out, you took all the crashes out, and then got focused on what it's in the title, fitness. It was Fitness First. So it got on with dealing with fitness. And then at the same time, not putting all these things that create distraction, especially in a franchise model, you have to make it as seamless as possible. And that's about making sure everything works really well. from digital to entry, as I said before, your programming, keeping it simple for the community, but really simple for operations to be able to operate that.
So, what are you excited about at the moment then, Kev?
What am I excited about? I'm excited about the 2024. I think 2024 for our sector is going to be spectacular. I think, we talked about, the bounce back of 2020. When people were coming out of 2022 into 23, we were all still getting through 23. Either some debt had built up, or we got problems with landlords, or we were still paying things off. You can see all the stuff that's in the market now about refinancing, debt refinance, whatever it is. So all that was going off in 2023. I think the first quarter of 2024 is going to be spectacular. I think this whole market, the clubs that have been refreshed and designed and the new ones that are here and the growth, I really think we're going to see a whole trajectory because, people want to get out. They want to work out when they come back January, February, March, April. I think we're going to see a wonderful growth to health and fitness and well-being in 2024. I think it's going to be, people will report by the end that it'll have been their best years ever.
All right, well, remember where you heard that. We're gonna check in when I see you at Ursa. But yeah, I like the optimism, and I'm sure that there's I'm sure that there's definitely a lot more people coming into the space. There's a lot more awareness of health and fitness. So all the kind of macro signs seem to be there. It just seems, as you said, a lot of businesses have been through a difficult period of having to refinance and a lot of legacy debt that's probably created a little bit of a plateau, which hopefully will start coming to an end. So final question. Been sort of 3 years, I think, since we've done an interview, maybe even longer.
It was 7.
It was 7? You're joking.
I'm not. It was 7 years. Can you believe it? It was 7. I looked the other day.
I think it was somewhere like in Canary Wharf or something, wasn't it?
It was 2016. It was raining. It was 2016.
We met in London.
I couldn't find you, remember?
Yeah, I
you
did.
were hiding up inside of a building. There you go.
Well, my final question then, to update this, Escape Your Limits is about escaping what you believed is impossible and gone on to make possible. Since your last interview, what would be a memorable example of escaping your personal limits?
I think my big one was the day I raised capital for the first time in TRIB. Everyone said, you're never going to do it. I mean, literally, no one was helping, and it was just me and Dan sorting stuff out. And I remember when we signed the deal and I was stood outside my local restaurant on the phone. I had the lawyers on as well. I got Jonathan Fisher on, and I got his lawyer, I got my lawyer, everybody there, and then he got signed and deal was done. And I just remember this whole release of pressure going, oh my God, and then saw the bank account go from negative to a positive.
How much did you raise?
It was good 7 figures to get started.
Wow.
So it was awesome. It was a great feeling of, okay, not that we've done it, because we'd not, but phase 1.
Right.
And when everybody else said it, we'll not do it. And a lot, when we opened up our first location, so many people said, yeah, they'll be bust in a week or 2, that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. We were okay, and we're still around.
Fantastic. Well, I look forward to checking in again sometime soon when we come back. It's been an interesting journey, and you're inspiration. I think anyone that's not been through it, it's easy to kind of like make a view on it, but just being in business, like just being in business for a year is a hell of, like getting a business started, keeping it going, growing it is a hell of an achievement. So I've got respect for anybody that's been able to do that, and got a lot of respect, seeing you over the years and where you started and where you've come to. You should be very proud of yourself.
Thank you, buddy.
Thanks, Kev.
Cheers, mate.
Thank you for listening to this episode. If you've got any value from it whatsoever, then please do us a favor, like, subscribe, tell somebody, and that will help us to be able to continue to do more of these and help you escape your own personal limits. Thanks for listening.